Yes, thank you. I'm talking from a little bit of broader perspective. It was very hard to stay away from what's happening around the world today when we're facing this TTIP. We are today facing challenges that makes me associate to mission impossible. Is it a mission impossible, or are we missing something essential? The world is rapidly changing. It's like we're all standing on a sloping platform where we are slowly gliding towards a new context, a new wording, a new agenda. If we look upon the last EU election, we see that the nationalistic movements all over Europe are marching. In Switzerland in February, they had a referendum stating that 50.1% of the voters wanted to build Switzerland as a gated community. 49.9% were against this. It's a matter of us and them. We are not going to let them into our gated community, the holy motherland, or in German, unsere Vaterland, Vaterland, Vaterland. We remember, it wasn't a long time ago. Because of the outcome of this referendum, Switzerland were thrown out of the media program. They are no longer allowed to apply for support. This, of course, affects the film industry, the whole Switzerland. When I was in Locarno some weeks ago at a fantastic outdoor festival, I met those who were shocked over this decision. They said, "We didn't realize, we weren't prepared." In German, that is, wir wussten nichts. Something we heard when Second World War was over. I'm not saying that the situation in Switzerland today is the same as it was in Germany in the 30s, but all of us who call ourselves Democrats and Europeans, we have to get active. To be radical today is to stand in the middle, to say yes to democracy, to say yes to the right of a free speech, to say yes to cultural diversity, to say yes to open borders, to say yes, I am a human being, just like you are a human being. What unites us is that we are all humans. To say no to dictatorships and extremic movements. The way that Mr. Putin is dealing with the opposition, with people who are not singing in his choir, or what ISIS are proclaiming in Syria, in Iraq. We in the middle, we say no. We in Europe, to this we say no. But today it's of great importance that we in the middle stand up and are ready to fight. We can't take anything for granted. See what has happened and is happening in Hungary, even though it's a part of Europe. But we will come back to that. To FERA, the European Film Directors Organization, we see Europe as a continent of possibilities. I'm a chairman of FERA. My president is Sir Al Parker. Our headquarters is in Brussels, where our CEO, Pauline Durand-Vieille, is working. We organize 20,000 film directors from 31 different European countries. We never, ever talk about our fellow directors as them. We're all us. We within Europe are us. And we don't say that our colleagues from Africa or Asia are them. What unites us all is that we want to tell stories, our own stories. Today we are in between the US steamroller and the Russian troops invading Ukraine. What we see now in Russia is that on the walls of the House of Books, they're hanging out 4-meter big banners stating that 4 writers are in fact enemies of the state. The only thing missing on this small little figure, Putin, is a mustache. Otherwise, he's just like Stalin or Hitler. It's a real horror now what is happening in Russia and in Ukraine. But also when we go further down to Hungary, a land in Europe, where we as FERA have members. Our former president, István Szabó, is Hungarian. Remember his film Mephisto. See that again. You will remind you of what's happening today. There in Hungary, these new anti-democrats have killed democracy and with laws forbid freedom of speech. They fire all the headmasters of the schools, and then they put in their own supporters in their positions. What is happening today in Hungary is a shame to all Europe. It's a shame that we let this happen. In Hungary, they speak all the time about us and them. And me being a gypsy, as my grandfather was a gypsy from Russia, this makes me one of them. I am part of the otherness, the ones who are not let in, the ones who are dying on the shores of Malta and southern part of Italy. Every day, 5 people are found dead on the beaches. Just a few hundred meters away, tourists and locals are sunbathing. Us and them. In this case, they are Africans, mostly black people, men, women, but also children. Every day, 5 people trying to find a new life are being killed by human laws, inhuman laws and regulations. Us and them. TTIP, what does this mean to us as creators, as filmmakers, us as Europeans? We are going to be offered chloride chickens from US that are so much cheaper because of the mantra of today is that we have to save the jobs, we have to consume, we have to sell, and people have to buy, no matter what. When we in Sweden talk about environmental issues, the people from the far right say environmental aspects has to wait until we get the economies in place. I don't know if they think or hope there is more than one planet. To all of us with open minds and eyes know we have to live in balance with nature. We know that it's something wrong in the chain of production of food. It will end up in ours and our children's stomachs, and we don't want that. And then, with this TTIP agreement, I know that we have enthusiastic politicians in Sweden, at least, and I guess after the last EU election, they are not just existing in Sweden. We have a Minister of Finance that thinks that we should not exclude culture, and especially film, from the trade agreement. And if we go back to the Mission Impossible, I must say that there are a number of missions that are impossible. One of them is to understand how a film with, for example, Tom Cruise in the lead, let's say Mission Impossible 5, that is being shot right now in Europe actually, that this film will drown among all these European local films done by talented directors and authors. To me, it's rather that the Bruckheimers and the rest of the industry in US has created a monopoly-like situation where Mr. Bruckheimer is standing in front of the orchestra and waving his stick, telling us how and what to play, and the instrument that we are playing is this little triangle. Is it unfair that we have a national film institute, that we have regional funds supporting our films, that we are cooperating through the media program, Creative Europe, Nordic Film and TV Fund and Eurimage, to finance true European films created by talented directors and authors? The US delegation wants to involve the film industry in the treaty so that there will be no benefits for the films produced in Europe. To make things a little bit more complicated, it's not black and white, nowhere in the world, you know that. I want to stress that the independent scene in the US is very interesting, and they are fighting too to get their films financed and done. The solution to this would be, and is already existing, to find state-based film institutes and funds that supports the film within US being made outside the studios. That kind of films is no fast food films, easy come, easy go, like hamburgers and French fries. They are more like slow food films. But the US studios and industry wants us in Europe and US to compete on the same level without us getting support from our film institutes and regional funds. Even to try and understand how they think is like Mission Impossible to me. And they are not paying back, they are not paying tax, they don't give anything back. But anyway, back to our politicians, who are the ones who are going to sit around the table to discuss the TTIP. It makes me think of Joseph Stalin and Winston Churchill. In the 30s, Joseph Stalin was approached by the Minister of Culture and Films. He told Comrade Stalin that they, the year before, had produced like 40 films, and out of these 40, 4 were really successful. Then Stalin looked up at him, and very shortly he told him, next year we are just going to produce these 4 films. In the end of the Second World War, the Minister of Defense came into Winston Churchill's room. He was in despair. The defense were running out of resources. So he asked Mr. Churchill if he could get some more resources and suggested that they should take money from the culture. Then Winston Churchill looked up at him, at this man, and asked him, if we are to take the money from the culture, then what are we going to defend? Unfortunately, today in many countries in Europe, we have these Stalin types who doesn't understand the meaning of culture, of the future culture heritage that we are creating today. Our Minister of Finance stopped our Minister of Culture when she wanted to exclude culture from the TTIP. He's that kind of a narrow-minded figure that is good with maths, but bad with humans and the soul issue. We have to secure the jobs, so we are willing to sell anything just to find that balance where there is enough people out of work and enough people working, so we will keep the inflation down. Cynicism, I say, listen to Churchill and learn. What we actually should build is not a strong economy per se. We should create an ecolonomy. Ecology and economy in balance. One planet, you know, that's all we have. These politicians should listen to what Kieślowski once said. It's hard to live in a world that is not described. We need to do films about our European lives, to make them visible, see the visions be fulfilled, to mirror our own lives through an artist's vision of what life is and can be. Now I will give you an example from the Swedish ground. Some years ago in Sweden, we had 2 theater owners, SF and Triangle Film. SF were big ones, but Triangle Film was more edgy, dared to show strong, heavy films that was far away from the fast food film genre. In order to find the balance, they also showed these blockbuster films. But as SF that wanted to maximize their profit went behind their backs of Triangle Film and started talking to the big guys from the US, the studio guys that produced these blockbuster films, and they told them that if the studios wanted to get a maximum spread of their films, they should exclude Triangle Films from getting their films. If they didn't do that, then SF wouldn't distribute their films at all. So what happened was that the American studios excluded Triangle Films from their blockbusters, and that led to that Triangle Film went bankruptcy. An end of that story is that we have close to a monopoly situation in Sweden, with SF dominating totally on the theater market. The totally absurd situation today is that the invasion of US studios films will go on with their war, where there's one white male hetero hero that is going to defeat the bad ones. The myth of the lonely white hetero hero is spread over and over and over again. And what does this do with the young people going to the theaters, looking for their identity, asking themselves, who am I? Who do I want to be? What do I want to stand up for? And if the answer to that just is me, myself, I, then we're in deep shit, ladies and gentlemen. An identity based upon not us versus them, me as either the lonely hetero white hero or a hopeless loser, that creates a world with enemies everywhere. Potential enemies are all over, and you can't trust anyone. What we need to build up is a world based upon trust, on the fact that we are all human beings. We're all united just by being humans. We all know that there is a lot of scumbags out there, but if we can't start with a we, us together, then we have lost already from the start. We're all strong, weak, hopeful, happy, frustrated, eager, and impatient at the same time, but we are all human beings. So it's actually not a mission impossible to stand up for us as creators from Europe, and our right to get support from our film institutes and regional funds to be able to tell our own personal, odd, awkward stories that are so strong just because we don't try to copy what we think is a working US three-act structure built upon the lonely, white, hetero hero's journey. It's not a mission impossible for us to be able to tell our politicians, yes, they can. Yes, they can. They can step up and take a stand for excluding the culture sector from the TTIP, and at the same time take a stand for economy standards where chloride chickens are forbidden as they break the law of nature. Let us go to our politicians and ask them if they want to be a Stalin or a Churchill. That is not a mission impossible. Thank you.